それではお時間になりましたので、セッション5、ガバナンス・バイ・イノベーションを始めさせていただきます。サイバーフィジカルシステムにおいては、効率的かつ効果的にかつですね、説明可能なガバナンスを実現するということが必要になりますけれども、これを行うためにはデータとかですね、最新の技術を有効に活用することが不可欠となってきます。しかし、多くの企業にとっては、言うは易し、行うは難しの状況であるのが現実ではないかと思います。そこで最新の技術としてどのようなことができるようになっているのか、企業が技術的なツールを実装する上でどのような課題や障壁が存在するのかについて、技術者とインハウスの弁護士が一緒になってここで対話を行うことになります。それでは三代田先生、よろしくお願いいたします。
はい、ただいまご紹介に預かりました森浜田松本の三代田と申します。で、このセッションは英語でさせていただきますので、必要に応じて通訳の方を聞いていただければと思います。So now let's change to English. And my name is Oritsune Miyoda, a partner at Morihamada Matsumoto. My work is basically international investigations and compliance work. I also spend a lot of time nowadays on business and human rights. And today, we'll first discuss a few key questions about this topic. And then we will move on to have two presentations and discuss about these presentations, and later also discuss a couple of questions. So before we go into the topics, I think I would like each of our distinguished panelists to introduce themselves. So maybe if Kaji-san, if you could first start off.
Thank you for introduction. Hello everyone, my name is Minato Kaji. I worked at Kirin Holdings as a legal manager. I'm in charge of supporting for corporate governance, risk management, AZM, or disclosures such as financial reports. I'm providing legal advice to contract and M&A projects as well. Before joining Kirin, I worked as a qualified lawyer and handled litigation and negotiation, dispute resolutions. So, and regarding Kirin Group, we produce beer, wine, soft drink, and healthcare products domestically and international. And we also have a listed subsidiary operating pharmaceutical business, so it is totally different management system from us. Thank you in advance.
Thank you. Very nice things to have. And maybe we can shift to Mimura-san, our next in-house counsel.
Yeah, thank you very much, Miura Sensei, and thank you very much for having me in this great opportunity. My name is Masatsugu Memura. I am now General Manager of Group Compliance Department at Panasonic Holdings Corporation. Basically, my team has two roles. So first one is to establish and monitor the group compliance program, and then the second one is to take a lead over investigations into the especially group material compliance matters, which may impact on our Panasonic brand. So I believe this session's topic, governance by innovation or technology, is extremely so important for my roles. So I'm so glad and so excited to participate in this discussion, and also I'm so happy to be here at Kyoto University, so where I spent my enjoyable school days more than 20 years ago. Yeah, thank you very much again.
Thank you. Nice to have an alumni. So Matsuzaki-san, can I ask you to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Naoko Matsuzaki. I'm a managing director at KPMG Japan, serving on the leadership of Fraud Risk Management Group, which is a newly established team a year and a half ago. I focus my practice on assisting clients in preventing and detecting corporate misconduct, as well as enhancing their compliance programs and bringing corporate governance to the next level. And as part of my responsibility, I am looking into ESG fraud, which is, as you know, environmental, social, and governance. as the next hot topic in corporate misconduct. As many of you may know, ESG-related rules, regulations, disclosure obligations, enforcement action are getting reinforced, which I believe is creating new risks to Japanese companies. So companies need to be prepared to manage risks in using technology, such as AI that was discussed yesterday, and use technology to manage risks and strengthen their governance, which I believe is the theme for the session today and important in agile governance. Prior to KPMG, I was with another Big Four forensics team doing hardcore white-collar crime-related investigations, spent approximately 6 years. And prior to my forensics experiences, I was in-house counsel at one of the large Japanese conglomerates handling regulatory investigations and international litigation for approximately 15 years. Thank you again for having me. It's such an honor and pleasure to be here and looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you. So switching table, maybe Tomiya-san.
Thank you, Chairman. Hi, everyone. My name is Keisuke Tomiyasu. First of all, I would like to thank to all of the organizers, Fukamitsu Sensei and moderator Miyoda Sensei, and all of the staffs to making this opportunity. And I'm currently working for Frontier Incorporated, which is a digital forensics company of AI Qubit in Japan. I originally came from the academia of the solid-state physics, and I am now in the AI technology side of the behavior informatics laboratory in the company. And today, I would like to explore with you how we can solve these issues of governance of innovation from the standpoint of hybrid position of technology and the business side. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, Vince, please.
Thank you. And again, it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you. And truly an honor to be in Kyoto. What a beautiful city this is. Especially, we were very lucky to be here at the time of the blossoming of all the trees. So it was beautiful. My name is Vincent Walden. I'm CEO of Kona AI. We are a compliance and fraud risk management platform, software platform, that looks at high-risk vendors, customers, and employees to improve compliance programs as well as assist internal audit programs with data-driven compliance. As background, I have been in professional services most of my career. I started my career back in Arthur Andersen days, many years ago. I was a partner at Ernst & Young for about almost 10 years with the firm, over 16, doing fraud investigations, white-collar crime, particularly helping companies address their issues in a regulatory matter, and focused primarily around the data analytics aspects of that. We built the software platform, which I'm looking forward to showing you today as part of our discussion, in response to the massive data volumes of many of the global clients that we work with. When you're talking about hundreds of millions or billions of dollars or billions of yen, needing to go through and look at from the accounting systems, who's getting paid what, when, and where, and how much. There needs to be a more effective and efficient ways to not only help demonstrate compliance from a regulator's perspective, which we've heard a lot this week on, but also to, I call it finding hidden money, demonstrating an ROI to the CFO or the CEO as to why compliance and fraud risk management is important, not just from a risk mitigation standpoint, but it's also good business. And it's also could be a cost recovery center that could put money back on the company balance sheet. So I look forward to speaking with you. And again, truly an honor to be here.
Thank you. Now let's dive in. And I'm not really sure if we have time, but if you have questions, please include in the QA box as you feel. And so let's start off with a high-level discussion. So let's say, do you agree that companies need to use technology to make their governance and compliance systems effective and efficient? So as we started off the introductions with Kaji-san, maybe for this question topic, if Kaji-san could first share
Okay.
her thoughts.
Yes, of course, I agree with using technology to efficiently manage governance and compliance. We have about 200 subsidiaries and affiliate companies in domestic and overseas, but our risk management system remains outdated. We don't use any information aggregation systems yet, and statistical system or AI yet. We conduct risk monitoring twice a year for targeting subsidiary or affiliate companies, but we still use Excel spreadsheets for information gathering and fact checking, involving much time both in our side and in operating company size. So in terms of content review, we will rely on intuition based on our human experience. So it is biased and it is not precise. Therefore, I feel it would be effective if we can use technologies that could mechanically discover fact involving fraud or any risk based on the database.
Thank you. So maybe if Matsuzaki-san, if you could share your thoughts from maybe the advisor side.
Sure. So I believe the answer is yes. And I think the trend is shifting from wartime to peacetime, so to speak, meaning that companies are starting to utilize technology that used to be deployed only in investigations, today now to ordinary monitoring. So companies traditionally conducted in-depth investigations using digital forensics technology, for example, when there was an incident. But nowadays, many companies are starting to use such technology to monitor and detect some irregularities in their ordinary course of business. So for example, in heavily regulated industries, such as financial institutions or pharmaceuticals, using AI and big data to monitor and detect is becoming relatively common, such as anti-money laundering or to comply with the Pharmaceutical Affairs Act. And it will be accelerated, I believe, as companies migrate to the cloud environment and there are more developments around generative AI. And in fact, KPMG has many credentials around responding to such needs. And when we talk about data used for monitoring and detecting, it could be either transactional or structured data, such as accounting data or journal entries, or it could be text-based, unstructured data, so to speak, such as daily sales reports, emails, chat messages, voice records, etc. And KPMG is strong in analyzing such transactional or structured data. So for example, in our financial audit procedures, we actually analyze such financial data and journal entries to detect irregular transactions that might be a red flag or a yellow flag or an orange flag for accounting fraud. And we also plan to accumulate relevant data, such as the corporate attributes or risk scenarios or risk analysis and evaluation results, and tie it with the audit results and try to enhance the accuracy of our data analytics. Oh, yes. And speaking in the context of ESG, as some of you may know, the CSRD will be applicable to certain Japanese companies who meet certain thresholds starting in 2028. And in Japan, there are other disclosure standards developed as well. And we are we are assuming that ESG disclosure will become subject to, we believe that such disclosure will become subject to the audit firm's assurance, the so-called third-party assurance. And since fraudulent disclosure, such as greenwashing of financial information will likely occur, the scope that you need to detect such irregularities using technology will become even much broader.
Thank you. It's interesting to have the CSRD EU's disclosure legislation about sustainability ESG to even come into this aspect. So maybe from the US aspect, if Vince, if you have any comments, please.
Yes, let me comment first from a regulatory perspective, which was really explored yesterday, so I'll be brief, and then also from just my own case in a business case perspective from my experiences. But as we saw from the DOJ yesterday, in their evaluation of corporate compliance program, again, the US regulators, they have a specific quote on the use of technology that I'd like to read. And that guidance specifically asks, do compliance and professional risk control personnel have sufficient direct and indirect access to relevant data sources to allow timely and efficient monitoring? That's not auditing, that's monitoring. And I'll explain the difference in a minute. For testing of policies, controls, and transactions, which is very significant, which means not just email, but actually accounting data. And so, do compliance professionals have access to relevant sources of data, including transactions? And can they do that on a continuous basis? I appreciate our last speaker saying business has a finite stop and end, which I'd love to debate that because I kind of disagree. Businesses should be a going concern from an accounting perspective. But compliance is not a project. And let me repeat that. And even data analytics is not a project. That's a very important part because projects have a defined start and stopped, as our previous esteemed speaker commented on. Compliance doesn't stop. Compliance is a business process, and it should be thought of as a business process, just like your accounting department, your payroll department. Does payroll have a end date for your employees? Well, unless they leave the company, yes. But no, that's a business process that continues. Compliance and fraud risk management is a continuous process, which means doing audits on look-back one times are not as effective. That might be good for internal audit, but for compliance, it needs to be continuous monitoring. And there's no way to do effective continuous monitoring without the use of data analytics to look at 3 entities. And again, if you think about your business, there's really only 3 entities that matter. There are vendors, people that you pay. There are customers or distributors, people that pay you, and your employees. And if you think about it, that's it. Give me any business. And again, I'm not talking cyber threats and external, world, the external environment, but within your business, there are vendors, customers, employees. What are you doing to monitor those activities, including transactions and perhaps even unstructured communications in some contexts, around those 3 entities? And that's what US regulators expect. And I think it's catching on more and more throughout the EU and in the world, and certainly here in Japan. Conferences like this have been very eye-opening to me to see how much adoption this is happening. So among Japanese companies, it's really excellent. So that's my long-winded speech of saying, yes, it is very important.
Thank you. And maybe given, if Umemura-san could comment from his experience, especially related to the US.
Yes, thank you. First of all, so I agree. Of course, I agree. So with technology is important, for compliance, and also, I agree with Vince. Yes, so because we experienced our U.S. FCPA case in our avionics business around 2018, and then at that time, so we learned, how important the effective compliance program is for the, protection of the company, and also, we also learned, how much or also how largely technology, contributes to the such kind of, effective, program. So maybe, so I may touch upon, what we have been doing. So since that, experience later on. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think everyone agrees that using technology would make compliance governance efficient and effective. And I think next thing is how companies are using technology. And sorry to go to you again, Umemura-san, but if you could tell us what you are doing at your company about this point.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to, pick up two examples in context of the compliance. First one is third-party compliance due diligence. So after the FCPA case, which I mentioned a moment ago, we launched our, third-party compliance due diligence tool and process. Under this tool, when business people wants to start a business with a particular third party, then they are required to use the tool and then answer to each question asked by the tool. Then the tool will classify the risk level, and then so depending on the risk level, so next action, including so legal review or something like that, so will be required. So I think this kind of tool so has there three advantages for the company. So firstly, so this kind of tool provides a automated process and standardized so operations between the frontline business people and then backyard legal people. Through that process, we can reduce extra work and also avoid human error as much as possible. And then so secondly, and also I think so more importantly, so we can put our limited legal resource on our higher risk case that of course also they should review by using their legal expertise. And then so thirdly, so this kind of tool can give visibility and oversight to our relevant legal officers and members at the parent company and also relevant region. So that is the first example of our case. And then so second case or second example is a global hotline system. Back in 2018, so we also launched a single global hotline system. Since then, so we have been promoting our speak up culture, and then this kind of hotline system by various ways. And then so number of the speak up so has been actually increasing. Through such operation and the process, lots of data of our internal reports and the investigation is accumulated in the single database. Then we can monitor what's going on or how investigations are proceeding. Or also we can make a regular analysis of such kind of data set. For example, so how many cases are actually reported or substantiated, or how many days investigation took, and then so what data set looks like. For example, so by year or by case category or by business organization and so on. And then so I think ideally so such kind of data gathering or cleansing or visualization could be or should be more automated. And then so if we could make a more slice and dice analysis by using technology, that would be more efficient. Yes, that's also yes second example. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing what you are doing at your company, which is very interesting. I think the last topic which I would like to discuss here before we enter into the very interesting presentations is the challenges, I think, when I assume they would be if companies would face when using technology in the context of governance and compliance. And I know it's your third time in the row, but maybe if Umemura-san could speak about, based on what you just discussed. I think you've discussed the good sides, I think, but I also assume there are the challenges of having these things implemented. So could you?
Okay, yes, thank you, Miura-sensei. Yes, I think so there are a couple of challenges. So the first challenge is how to connect the our new compliance tool with the existing IT infrastructure so effectively. So in general and in the company, so there are many different kind of IT systems and infrastructure, including of course, so accounting, database or so infrastructure. So I think it's very challenging to, connect the compliance tool with such different, kinds of existing accounting, database or so infrastructure. But if the compliance tool is more seamlessly connected with existing IT infrastructure, then so it will reduce human error as well as so even human resources. So moreover, if we can connect the compliance due diligence tool or so with our existing accounting database, then so we may able to monitor our high risk transaction ongoing basis and in more effective manner. So and also second this the second challenge maybe how to analyze or so interpret the account or such kind of accumulated data set itself. So from a compliance culture perspective, so I think as our hotline data may be good examples. So also that I am so very interested in the yesterday's discussions. So that yesterday's discussions also indicated the hotline data is maybe also good examples for this kind of the challenge. So I believe that the right and consistent interpretation of the data set is also very important. For that purpose, I think that so setting a right indicator is I think so critically important. And also if we could successfully create such kind of the indicators, then the the interpretation of a data set itself so might be more easily or even more automatically made by using technology.
Thank you very much, and sorry for like chasing you 3 times. So I think Matsuzaki-san, you've seen many companies, you've worked with many companies. So if you could speak from what you see from working with various companies on this side.
Sure, thank you. So generally speaking, not pointing to a specific client or an industry, we generally see 3 big challenges. Number 1 relates to silo data and weak data governance. The second point relates to a silo organization and weak headquarters governance. And number 3 relates to a lack of resources. To go back to my first point, silo data, typically in Japanese headquarters, IT department does not oversee or manage or control the IT systems of their entire group subsidiaries. And IT systems tend to be different or separate per each subsidiary or per function. So consequently, there tends to be this lack of data governance, meaning that it's not centrally controlled or there's no transparency as to what kind of data exists or where it is stored or who is the owner, who is managing it, is it even reliable, etc. And the root cause somewhat seems similar to the 2025 cliff, 2025年の崖 in Japanese, where METI predicted that if Japanese companies failed in its digital transformation, meaning migrating from their legal legacy system and overcome the lack of IT human resources, there will be a maximum of 25 trillion yen loss per year in 2025 and beyond. And my second point relating to silo organization, here again, typically the headquarters does not have strong control over its group subsidiaries or its business units, and especially when it comes to overseas functions, which somewhat creates this silo organization. And the same can maybe said within the headquarters function as well, meaning when you think about corporate misconduct, when there's this suspicion or alleged accounting fraud or embezzlement, perhaps the accounting department is majorly responsible. Or when it comes to kickback, it could be the procurement department. If there's like a clear law violation, then it might be the legal department. and harassment, then HR, you should take care of it. And also, it tends to be difficult, challenging to cover overseas subsidiaries as well. So the same applies when you try to monitor something where it's handled by different departments or teams, and they might not always be aligned. So this siloness somewhat creates challenges when companies wish to build a data-driven compliance system and monitor the mix of all these various data and information to detect irregularities using AI that humans cannot necessarily flag. And the issue probably is not only about monitoring, but also it could be a hurdle for any type of using data efficiently or effectively for other purposes. So for example, in my ESG context, where the sustainability department or the CSR team is trying to gather ESG related information from individual departments, they may not necessarily be aligned, meaning there might be some inconsistency from a fraud prevention perspective. And lastly, going to my third point, which was the lack of resources. When companies generally install technology-driven monitoring systems, they sometimes encounter too many false positives and cannot investigate all those flags that were detected, which obviously did not surface from the first place when there was no technology utilized. And companies obviously prefer to play safe, meaning they don't want to go too narrow to overlook a serious incident. But then the scarce resources could become a challenge. So when companies do introduce technology, it might be a good idea to simultaneously design a structure where they can handle such false positives, because otherwise you would end up leaving all those orange flags that were detected unresolved. So, and as you may know, both people and technology learn through training. So unless they have the opportunity to actually review and train themselves, then they cannot improve their accuracy. So there's this negative loop of if there's no investment, there's no opportunity to learn. So ideally, we would advise clients to allocate additional resources, perhaps, until they can reach a certain accuracy level. So we would strongly advise against reducing resources, thinking that technology would resolve everything.
Thank you. And
Yeah,
and
and
it looks like Vince wants to.
I'll be real brief on these comments, but I write for a magazine called Fraud Magazine, which is a publication by the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, which actually is a shout out to the Japan chapter. There's a very strong presence of certified fraud examiners in Japan, which is great to see, and it's growing. My last month's issue that I wrote in my column was breaking down data silos. It's really interesting. I mean, data silos was such a key that you both commented on. That is a huge issue. In fact, it's the #2 issue in the ACFE's recent fraud technology survey that came out, I think, in February of this year. The second issue was data silos, not having access to data, which is something I'm very passionate about, and I love breaking down and connecting. And then the third issue was adequate resources. So Naoko, your third point is spot on. You know what the #1 issue was according to the survey, which was getting the financial and personnel resources required from management. And so the #1 biggest issue, 48% of the respondents in that survey, and again, it was a global survey, said, you know, we don't have funding or resources to get the job done. And secondly, it was data silos. And secondly, we didn't have enough in-house personnel. The reason I bring that up is because I think we're messaging this wrong in our community, to our stakeholders, to the CFO. As discussed yesterday, remember, again, amongst us, we're all compliance and risk professionals, so of course this is very important to us. This may not be the number one thing on the CFO's mind or the CFO's mind. Unless they're getting investigated, then again, you can bet that lots of money and resources will be allocated when there's a regulator at your door. But we're not in that time mostly. And you said, in peacetime, how do we proactively demonstrate? It's very important that we show return on investment. So not just doing this as a risk mitigation exercise, but using analytics to find hidden money and recover costs, improve efficiencies, improve your internal audit budget, or even your external audit budget when you can do things yourself. So it's very important that we as compliance and risk professionals demonstrate an ROI. And I'll talk about some of the tools that we're using and ways to do that, but that was the number one issue why things didn't get started. And so keep that in mind as we present our plans to improve our compliance programs. Let's make a business case out of it, not just a scare tactic, not just to regulators, because again, that works, and especially works when you're getting investigated, which hopefully it doesn't happen, but we need to make that business case.
Thank you. So maybe to close this topic, I'd like to ask Kaji-san for her thoughts.
Sure. Same as Umimura-san and Matsuzaki-san, the first challenge is the essential need for integration with our court system. Even within our domestic subsidiary, they use different systems from us, holding company, especially in overseas companies. Additionally, so I believe that there are limitations in terms of system hurdles and scope when using technology. As a second point, there is an issue with information access rights. We have not made group internal regulations for data access from other entities, especially foreign companies. So even if technology system is introduced, there may be a situation where access to the target information is not possible. Yes.
Thank you. And from here, maybe we can have two presentations. First from Kono AI, from Vince. So,
if I may, yeah, and if I may, can I share the screen? Here we go. I'll be very quick. You allowed me about 10 to 12 minutes to show you some technology that can be used. I just want to show you two framework slides to explain the process, and then we'll go into the technology. But again, making that business case following our previous discussion on the challenges, I always have a two-pronged approach. Make your business better and keep you out of trouble. And if I'm talking to the CFO or the CEO or IT or what have you, a lot of these technologies and compliance technologies around anti-fraud, I like to use the make your business better argument. Save money, identify fraud, waste, and abuse, reduce investigation costs, reduce costs overall, etc. And then of course, from a regulatory and legal perspective, I like to make, if I'm talking to a compliance professional, it's the keep you out of trouble argument. Align with regulators' expectations, much of what we heard yesterday. Improve the culture of compliance, which was talked about a lot. Again, when there is perceived oversight that management is looking and cares, you get a lot more effectiveness, because hands down, the number one way to identify fraud and risks in your company is not through technology, is not through analytics, it's through tips. And I hate to use that word whistleblowers, someone mentioned that yesterday, but it's people coming forward, and you want to involve that culture of compliance. But I wanted to, when you're making your business case, keep that in mind. It's not just a scare tactic in terms of bad things will happen if we don't do this. We can also save the company money. And the risk areas, as we think about that could be in scope for the use of technology and analytics, especially around vendors, customers, and employees, are everything around the procure-to-pay process, which is the vendors and your accounts payable, order-to-cash, which is your sales process. You'll see ESG in this category, travel, employee travel and entertainment expense. There's lots of great categories. What I'll show is, I'm going to go to the website now and show you an example of a process diagram that shows how the data flows within an organization. So if you think about, this is where an analytics process can start. If you look on the left, you have your financial accounting data. That can be ERP or SAP or Oracle, you know, whatever, your local systems, your accounting system, but that's not the only source. Again, many of us in compliance are familiar with due diligence systems. We've done background checks, vendor surveys, the OFAC, the watch list checks to make sure we know who we're doing business with. You know, pull that data in. Pull internal and external resources. Pull your hotline data. Pull your investigations database. What have you looked at in the past? Put that into a data lake, which again, this breaks down those data silos that we've talked about. And you can analyze lots of tests for risks. The problem with audit, and especially an internal audit, is it looks at one test at a time. And that doesn't do a very good job at identifying holistic fraud risk. And I'm happy to repeat that. Audits are not effective at identifying waste and abuse and fraud. There's plenty of ACFE statistics that demonstrate that. But when you can look at data at a high level risk, so instead of just looking at segregation of duties by itself, or conflicts of interests by itself, or urgent payments, or fake vendor schemes by itself, you look at the data in totality. So I'm going to look at 200,000 invoices that were paid. And I'm going to risk score those 200,000 across not just one test, but 200 tests. And show me every time a transaction hits on a test, it's going to get a point. So the more tests or risks I violate, the more points that I get so that I can risk score those 200,000 invoices. Someone's going to be in the top 10. And as you can see on the diagram at the top, that's review the top 25, 50, or 100 tests or transactions or invoices, because they're the ones hitting on multiple triggers, not just one. That's where your risk is, and that will help reduce false positives. Meanwhile, you can look at the dashboards. Many of you might be familiar with Tableau or Power BI, common dashboards many of us in compliance use now to visualize data beyond just Microsoft Excel, and then tag those transactions to be able to stop an improper payment before it gets paid, and learn from that model such that if I tag a risky transaction, I can say, find me more like this. Just like in email review, which many of us has done, and we're going to talk about email in a little while, but just as an email review, if I find a high smoking gun email and I say, find me more like this, that same math works with a transaction where I can say, find me more high-risk transactions. I'm going to go into the demo now and show you an example of some of the insights that we use. Again, as I mentioned, the power of visualization. This is Power BI, but it's wrapped around a dashboard that's in this is the Kona AI system, where you can see, $815 million rolled up across 183,000 transactions and 11,000 vendors. Where is my transaction risks? I can see it globally over time, by vendor breakdown, et cetera, but this is just one of many dashboards. Now, one of the big breakthroughs that we needed to do, and we did it specifically for this conference, is the need to look at data in a local language. And if I can see here, if I go to Japanese, the language dynamically updates so that I can go and look at my data in Japanese. And so this is something that's evolving, but it's really important that we want to make sure users are comfortable in their own language. And so when I look at my translation in Japanese, I can see all the headers are dynamically changed. Look, by the way, and this is just a great example of how technology is radically changing things. If I went traditional Chinese, there's traditional Chinese. If I want, we do a lot of risks in Portugal or in Brazil, so I have Portuguese. Language now is no longer a limiting factor, and being able to dynamically change the language is very important. And I appreciate KPMG helped us with this in Japan on some of these things. There's some languages, there's some terms that don't quite translate, and we need to work on that. For example, we had this discussion at dinner last night, Yoko. When I say tag a transaction, like tag it, well, the translation tool actually is the game tag, and translation to translate it to the name game, you know, the tagging game, which obviously wrong context. And those are the things that we'll fix, but it's very important to think about how these types of tools can make life easier. One thing I want to show you is this algorithm selection. And this is really where the power of data analytics can really demonstrate itself. So that idea of taking hundreds and hundreds or thousands of invoices or transactions and being able to look at them across not just one test, but hundreds of tests. So I can see here, and I hope the audience can see, in fact, what I'll do is I'll translate this to Japanese as an example so you can read it in your local language. But that idea of being able to look at transactions individually and say, all right, if it hits on vendors who are sharing a bank account with an employee, we know that's pretty bad. We want to look at that. That should get 100 points as opposed to just 1. And so if it hits on that transaction, that's really going to boost the score. But we run this through hundreds and hundreds of transactions. And let me make this Japanese so you can see some examples. So if this might be better, and I don't claim it's not going to be a perfect translation, but there are hundreds of tests here that we can run through, and you, as the risk officer or compliance professional, can go through and pick the weights that you want so that if it hits on one of these tests, it's going to get a certain number of points. And by doing so, you then are able to look at these high-risk transactions, make decisions on them, and I'm going to put it back to English so I can follow here, so bear with me, and view those transactions in context. So out of 180,000 transactions, the riskiest transaction got a score of 24.97. It hit on 5 tests, which the tests were round dollar invoices that cleared is less than the posting date. The invoice, the invoice file is later than the check date. The invoices are sequential. There's hitting on all sorts of bad things. And I can even pull in and view the invoices if I wanted to see it. Here's the invoice. And I can run OCR text on those invoices. So it's a whole bunch of, this is my demo, so forgive me, but a whole bunch of vodka shots and birthday gifts. But that information was pulled into using optical character recognition in here so that I can search it, just like we do in emails. And so bringing all this information together breaks down those data silos and then helps you train the model such that I can now create an alert, tag it, answer questions about those transactions. You know, how was this transaction identified? What's the testing procedures that we're going to do? And do those communications. And then the last thing, should this transaction be used to influence the model? And if I click yes, that's find me more like this. So I want to be conscious of time, but that idea of this is a continuous process. Data is refreshed monthly, and it's either installed on site within the company's IT environment, so data never has to leave, or it can be done as a service provider where data can be sent out to a third party, to companies like KPMG or other firms, or can be hosted by us, and just on a monthly basis, compliance professionals log in and review their riskiest transactions. So thank you for allowing me to show you this, and I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. And maybe before we enter into a second presentation, if other panelists has questions or comments, or maybe I thought Umemura-san, you might have something, but.
No, thank you, Vincent. I may have a very fundamental questions to you. So as not only me, as many panelists mentioned that, so there are lots of the different infrastructure, IT infrastructures, and then and also you mentioned that accounting data or due diligence database or other compliance database, so has a lots of data, and so maybe so your tool so will pull out such kind of data so into this system. And then so my questions may be how will your tool work, so in this case, so how to connect the each the different compliance or so accounting database so with your this kind of great tool.
Very good question. And I think the breakthrough was research that we did several years ago with companies. We would manually have to extract data, payments data, invoices, purchase orders, what have you, from the company's accounting system. We would have, and again, this was back in my consulting days, we would have teams of people manually code the tests, push them out to review, push them out to a Tableau or Power BI dashboard. And it was very time consuming, and it almost made it cost prohibitive. Using software technology that automates all those manual processes now has made it completely different. I mean, for less than, 50,000 US dollars, which I think is around 20 million yen or so, for less than that, you can do a 100% analysis on these types of transactions and then continue on a month-to-month basis. The key breakthrough was what's called a unified data model. And when you can take data from multiple data sources, put it in a unified data model, which, and again, to be specific, let's just say vendor name. In your system, accounting system, it's vendor underscore name. But in my unified data model, it's called vendor name asterisk, whatever. And so being able to map every field in the database to your unified data model allows, you set it up once and then it runs forever. And so we don't connect to live ERP systems. SAP or Oracle will download the data into a data warehouse, and then the Kona AI platform picks that up and runs it through all the testing, the hundreds of testing algorithms. But having it in a unified data model allows data to be refreshed on a monthly, even weekly basis. And so the data is always up to date and relevant. And that data can live, that unified data model can live in your company's IT environment, or it can live in the cloud. And it's really up to the company and the IT's preferences. But that unified data model, that is the breakthrough.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. So thank you, Vince, for the very interesting presentation, and Memura-san for the question. So we have one more great presentation waiting, and
before that, I have one question to.
Of course.
Yeah. I want to know how you broke down the data silo more concretely. Yeah, I mean, my concern is there should be many types of the data formats and many applications, but you entered in the same data lake and data ware. And how did you clean the data?
Yes. Well, it did take 2 years and $2 million to build the software to do this, but now that it's built, it's automated. But I'll tell you, there is no one size fits all, and that's a very good question. There is always setup because everybody's accounting system, everybody's, their document system for images and contracts, their compliance system, their due diligence system, whether they're using Exeger or Navex or GAN or all these different due diligence tools, everybody's different. And so what I would generally say is that, like, for example, in the Kona AI, we've automated about 80% of the tests and the names. And we leave 20% for customization. And that's where, we work with service providers sometimes, like KPMG and others. We work with, or we work with the client directly to customize those deployments, which usually take anywhere between a month to 2 or 3 months to fine-tune those tests and get the data right. But once you set it up, it runs continuously. That's why, again, this is not a project. There's no end. And that's why we needed this software platform, because nobody wants to have an endless consulting project. That's very expensive and continuous. Companies wanted a software that they could bring in-house, which is why I quit my consulting career to build this as a software model. And now I work with consultants to help set it up, but then the company runs it themselves. And then they'll call the professionals and the outside counsel when they see something, because we don't do the, they'll do the investigation work.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Yeah. Platform should be more improved continuously.
Yes.
Yeah. And we are also in the agile governance loop, and platform is also so. It's my opinion. So I understand and I agree with you.
Yeah, and here's one last thing. Heaven forbid, when I say take the top 200,000 transaction invoices and you only look at the top 25, heaven forbid there is a huge fraud in transaction number 95,123. Way down the list, there's a huge fraud there. We missed it because our algorithms told us to only look at the top 25 here. And again, from a regulatory perspective, and again, when I talk to some of the colleagues at DOJ, and that's an explainable, that's a defensible position. Because, hey, we were looking here, and this fraud happened. Now, what went wrong? Why did you look at this? Now, the point being, though, is that we investigated that case. It came in through a whistleblower, let's just say. We then looked at the algorithms and tests that we were missing in transaction number 97,000, and we fixed it. We said, oh, wait, we don't have those tests. Let's put them in so that next time, and this is the agile governance as a process, not a project. Now we've fixed it, we've tuned it, so that next time that transaction 97,000 will come up in the top 10 list because we've tuned it. And again, you don't have to be perfect. You have to be agile. And I think that's a perfect example of being agile. You're constantly updating this. And as you tag transaction, the machine is learning, which is why we call it Kona AI. Find me more like this, just like in emails. When you tag a high-risk email, it finds more like this. When you tag a high-risk transaction, it will find more like this, and that's the process.
Thank you. And yep, the screen is on, so maybe Tomiya-san.
Oh yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah. Okay, so I will talk about the technology changes corporate governance. Along this context, I will introduce our story. Okay. How can you change this? Okay. Okay, so let me introduce our company, Fronteo, at first. This is a company profile of our Fronteo. So our company is issued in the growth category in Tokyo stock market, and we have established in 2003, so operated for over 20 years. And our main customers are not only companies, but also government agencies, law firms, and so on. And also, our business domains are data analysis business, including legal tech, AI, life science, AI, business intelligence, and economic resilience. So, and also we have 3 overseas branches. What I want to say is just we are not suspicious, proven company. Okay. So, and then who am I in Fronteo Corporation? Okay, so I belong to Behavior Informatics Laboratory, and I have PhD in science and came from academics, real estate physics, and I changed my career completely several years ago to business company. Okay? Again, my name is Keisuke Tomiyasu. And I have worked on research at universities and also United Kingdom science technology facilities. Especially, I was professional about the neutron scattering experiments and also the combination of data analysis, which called AI now. So before the boom of AI, I already many performed data analysis and in condensed matter physics. And I have several decades of published papers in English, invited talks and conferences and so on. And then changed to affiliation to the Fronteo, and I researched and developed the algorithm of Qubit, which is an AI system in our company, and finally, unfortunately, succeeded in a major renewal of that algorithm. So I will talk about that algorithm today, some portion. Okay. So here is a brief introduction of corporate governance, but I'm not a professional about the corporate governance, so just that this is linked from this site. And corporate governance consists of mainly governance, compliance, and risk management with internal or external audit. This is a set system. And what important thing is we have common problems. The first is a vast volume of internal documents and emails and so on. And then we have the 2025 problem, especially in Japan, which is very horrible, significant labor shortage. Okay, so about this, we have a common key factors to foresee or find the risk of fraud with high speed and with high precision and with minimum manpower. And then AI technology enables this. To solve this problem, we have our design concept of AI. We have three characteristics. One is just finding, but with sufficient accuracy. And second is little or no effort, which means little or no training data, because training data is very difficult to collect it. And also third is inspiring, which is our AI should give some intuitive information for human. So let this final decision to the human or professionals. I mean, our philosophy is that ultimately the decision should be made by human. So which means that still and from now on too, professionals such as attorneys, corporate lawyers, compliance officers are necessary. AI cannot substitute it. Okay. And not through automation by AI, by the collaboration or concept by humans, AI are needed. Okay. Okay. Here is a service diagram okay. So risk cycle is, we can classify the state into three states. First is ordinary, and then go to caution state, and then sometimes or accidentally enter in emergency state. But sometimes, and beyond emergency, the company go overcome the emergency and go to the caution state and back to the ordinary state. And we have some applications to support them, and several files are applicable, but KeepIt-I is dedicated to communication tools like emails and chat in the ordinary state, which is peacetime. Okay? And KeepIt-World is the same, but no training data is needed, and with reasonable accuracy can be obtained. And then when we are emergency, we can use KeepIt-Automator, which can treat almost all of the files, very minor file formats also, and including password cracking and so on. Okay? So what we want to say is that all of the company enters from somewhere in this risk cycle, and we can support you at any situation. Okay. Then we will enter in introduce our technology KeepIt. Okay. Here is new algorithm. Okay. So we started from our goal was making a human's cognitive model. And we explored the mechanism of superior judgment ability of humans. I think this is very great ability of humans. And we have newly a color harmony model came up with me. And I made this algorithm. So words should be in the document is equal to primary colors. Then total concept or nuance of the whole document is captured by color hue. And the combinations of words create concept or nuance, or colors create hue. Okay? At the bottom schematic picture can show this one. And human intuitively perceives this stone like this figure. I was originally inspired by the kind of synesthesia. 日本語で言うと共感覚というものです。And a kind of some person can see the telephone number like this with colors. So this is some of the special ability of genius. And we put this model into a new algorithm with mathematically linear optimization theory. Okay, here is the results of our simulation and the test, the performance comparison. The horizontal axis shows the rate of reviewed documents, which means the high score is 0 and low score is 100%. And the vertical axis indicates recall, which means that fraction of retrieved documents which you desired. Okay, and if we have no AI, your desired documents can be seen and can be found in a constant probability. Okay, so which means that black, solid, or straight line. But if we can use AI, we can more efficiently find that your desired documents. Before, we have orange curve like this. But then, using new algorithm, we have very vertically starting up the green line like this. So very, very effective. And if using the figure of merit as 80% of recall curve, the performance should be 6 times higher than the before. So which enables us to find desired documents and reduce 83% of the review of financial cost or time cost. Scientifically speaking, this fact suggests that the new algorithm and our color harmony or synesthesia model reproduces the superior intuitive judgment ability of humans. Okay. And then here is the intuitive user interface of Qubit Automata. I just showed this slide only. But the bottom is an AI monitor's picture. We call it heat map. And when we see this suggesting wrong turning means, this is extremely different, the judgment of AI and the judgment of human. So this suggests that possibly some reviewer put the wrong tag. So AI can monitor the reviewers too. Okay. So here is a real examples. Here is, the left side is Qubit Automata. So yeah, this is the same picture. So I skip this one. And the right one is for the example of Qubit Eye. Here is a press release which issued in October 2023. A half year ago. Okay, so the title is Frontier Supports DX of Bank of Mitsubishi UFJ. So in this bank, now our Qubit Eye monitors millions of emails every day, millions of emails, really huge numbers of emails, and we can check the some nuance and fraud using color harmony model. Okay, and the final slide is here. We have just introduction of the Qubit World Sonar. The characteristic is with no training data. We use special technology in our Frontier with unique word-to-vec similarity. We call it concept encoder and search by concept. Here is an example. When we type complaints related to dementia, and we can find, Qubit find 2 sentences like this. For example, my elderly mother was post blah, 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 and she has impaired judgment. The second is my mother is 79 years old without understanding. The important thing is that there is no word of complaints and dementia and so on, but we can find the candidates precisely using word-to-vec technology and similarity. And also, if you have no idea about that concept and or the types of fraud, you don't have to specify anything, but we can capture overall topics and distribution, and might possibly newly appearing clusters you can find from the bird's eye view of the whole like this. Okay. Here is a conclusion slide. Okay, Qubit Eye technology enables the following with minimum manpower to find the fraud and the evidence to protect you, and to find the fraud before it happens and while it is small, which means like health assessment of your company or organization. And high accuracy even with little training data with color harmony model, and also reasonable accuracy with no training data with concept encoder model. So my final message is prepare for the worst DX spills over into governance and compliance, not only to the human resource and accounting, but also governance and compliance are the target. Okay, thank you for attention.
Thank you very much. And being mindful of the time, I think we have about 5-6 minutes left. So maybe we can move forward to conclude and ask each panelist for their last maybe final comments on what we discussed and what they think we could move forward with this. So similar to how we introduce ourselves, maybe from Kaji-san.
Thank you for today. I learned a lot of possibility for using technology for risk management. Fortunately, we don't experience big incident or fraud issues, but we recognize the need for preparation for agile governance using innovation technologies. So I'd like to focus on the real cases using technologies for improvement of risk management. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then may we move on to Memura-san?
Yes, thank you very much for today. And then, yes, so today, so yes, so as the panelists shared, that's a great tool. So obviously, so tech is so rapidly, of course, growing. But on the other hand, legal resource of legal counsel is very limited. So under this premise, we should continue to pursue the sound compliance culture and effective compliance program. So from that perspective, the concept of legal operations and utilization of legal tech is will be getting more and more, of course, important. And I'd like to keep such viewpoint. So what people should do, and so what so technology should do. And so I do believe that legal and compliance experts should polish their expertise, and then such experts should more focus on their substantive tasks that they can substantively add their value or their expertise for the clients of who is of course the company. So from our in-house perspective, thank you very much.
Many thanks. So maybe Matsuzaki-san as well.
Sure, thank you. So listening to Vince's and Tomiya-san's presentation, I was thinking about when we talk about technology, I was thinking of transitioning from fail-safe to foolproof, meaning that today when we need to tackle corporate misconduct, I believe the idea is fail-safe, meaning that you have an assumption that misconduct probably exists somewhere in your organization, so you try to build a system that you can detect early and respond quickly. But as technology progresses, such as what Vince showed us and Tomiya-san introduced, we are envisioning this future of becoming foolproof, meaning that we will be likely detect these misconduct close to real time. And so in that case, people will probably not attempt to commit misconduct due to this deterrence effect, or people will not be able to commit misconduct even if they wanted to, thanks to the technology.
Thank you. And maybe to the two presentations. So Tomiya-san.
Thank you all. And yes, my final comment is in technology, many people are blinded by the buzzword, AI or big data and so on. But while closing their thinking to the traditional human-machine division of labor, but we don't have to be so defensive, in my opinion. We have agile governance. I think this is very new combination, agile and governance. Very flexible and very solid. But this is some kind of innovation of the combination, and which is a methodological concept for rapidly improving everything, even governance design. So I think that it teaches two major things. One is start small and succeed, and then build on that. And repetition is important. And also, the second thing is loops. The end never comes. loops are meaningful. I think this is equal to learning in the language of machine learning. And the important thing is we should have automatic feedback. Unfortunately, we have no time to discuss automatic feedback or probably human in the loop, but this is actually in Kaizen very similar to that word, an excellent Japanese culture. So we can also do Kaizen almost unconsciously for all Japanese traditional culture. So let's continue to combine technology and governance, and then I believe great innovation will come our way. Thank you.
Thank you. And one
And
last comment.
to wrap up, I have one software customer whose annual goal is to recover $1.2 billion a year this year in fraud prevention and detection. That's over 180 billion yen. They're a very large, very large retailer, probably in the top 10 in the companies in the world. But last year they did about 900 million. There's an ROI to be had here in compliance, and it should get the attention of the CEO or the CFO. It's not just a risk game, it's real dollars that can be had when you effectively do compliance monitoring. And so that's one of the key things. I think it's not just a risk game, it's a make your business better game. And that's something to really bring up, breaking down those data silos, getting the right team. And the wonderful thing is, this doesn't cost millions of dollars. It doesn't even cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's very cost effective and it's very real, and every company can be doing it now. I've seen this happen in almost every industry. It's really big in minerals and mining, pharmaceutical, oil and gas, technology, manufacturing. It applies in just as where the FCPA and bribery and corruption is a global problem, it doesn't look at any, it's not unique to one company. So this is real, and it is an ROI measure just as it is a risk measure.
Many thanks. So I think we've crossed the time, and so thank you very much to our wonderful panelists and for everyone who attended this session. We are the last session, and I think we have one more speech from Fukami-sensei. So thank you so much. ありがとうございました。